Mabuhay from the Philippines. I am RJ Arsena, and this is my study, Language Moves in Classroom Discussion and Discourse Analysis. Teachers talk more, students talk less. This still happens until to date. Every time that there is a class discussion, most teachers are always doing the talking, leaving the students to seldom talk and only talk a few, which resulted to not having elicited enough responses to know whether a student knows something from the lesson or not. It is very important in every classroom for the teacher to give more time to students to express their thoughts in different situations so that the teacher would know what exactly is learned by these students and what as well these teachers need to provide in order to scaffold these learnings. Hattie 2012 said that teachers talk between 70 and 80% of class time, and teachers talking increases as the year level rises and as the class size decreases. He further stated that teachers talk far too much and that the proportion of talk listening needs to change to far less talk and much more listening. This further means that to combat classrooms dominated by teacher talk, giving more focus on listening is very necessary. In this case, students are given a chance to speak and, more importantly, impose their own prior achievement, understanding, sequencing, and questioning. Zindroy also showed in his study a similar result that on average, 71% of the talk was done by the teachers, whereas 29% of the classroom talk was filled by students' talk. This further tells us an indication that a lot of teachers in different classroom discussions give more time to what they are giving to students rather than assessing what the students have learned from them. In addition, Betash and Azarnia 2015 reported their research findings on the teacher talk time. The teacher talk dominated a large proportion of class time, that is 75%, while student talk time comprised only of less than 20% of this all or entire class time. Moreover, Garbavi and Erebani 2014 revealed from their study that the teacher was not successful to create authentic communication, for the talk was repetitive and monotonous, and it followed the initiation response feedback or IRF sequence, which allowed the teacher more turns and talk. Yet, the researcher believes that initiation response feedback, or better known as IRF, may still give more chance to students to speak rather than teachers do the talking. Teachers may ask questions to their students and do only a one phrase follow-ups to give more time to the students to speak while getting also the needed assessment to know whether or not the students learned from the discussion. On the other hand, Yan Fen and UCAN 2010 found out in their study that a major portion of class time is employed by the teachers to give direction, explain activities, and check students' understanding. This means that teachers use the time talking for they want their students to get and fully understand what they want to convey during a learning process. Teacher talk was also used to give feedback such as praise with comments, repetition, plus praise and guide to self-repair, which is of great significance for language learners to stimulate their learning motives and enthusiasm. True enough, there is always a reason as to why the teachers do the talking inside the classroom during discussion, and this could be one of these reasons behind. With this study was made with an aim of having its results to make us understand better as to what really is happening inside the classroom during the discourse, if it makes the students talk more and the teachers talk less, or the other way around. If these students learn more or not through the elicitations they make from the way these teachers use the language during the discussion. To add, this study gives also focus as well on the senior high school teachers' language use, since there has been not enough studies involving this newly added program in Philippine education. It is also aimed in this study if the teacher's way of structuring their questions and or statements may give us light to know whether the students respond or not. It has been observed also in different actual classroom discussions that teachers use different ways of structuring their statements when asking questions to students and when making follow-ups. These ways of asking questions may also provide us answers on their effectiveness to elicit responses from the students and may further help us distinguish the learning of the students. Hence, by having all those, we have these research questions. So by knowing the aims of this study, the following questions were drawn. So what are the language moves in classroom discourse, and how do language moves shape students' participation in classroom discourse? To help us answer those questions, we have these theories. To answer research question number 1, Flanders' theory on move was used, and this theory of Flanders on move is divided into 4 types, namely soliciting, responding, structuring, and reacting. More so, to answer research question number 2, the theory of Sinclair and Coulthard 1975 on initiation, response, feedback was utilized. This theory helped the researcher understand as to how language use shapes the students inside the classroom during discussion, if it focuses as to how the teacher initiates conversation, how students respond to the initiated conversation, and how the teacher gives feedback right after receiving the response. The design of this paper is descriptive qualitative research design, wherein the collected language data from the recorded classroom discussion were analyzed descriptively, and the participants, we have 10 participants who were all teachers in one of the higher educational institutions in Davao City. Dukes 1984 stated that in qualitative research, 3 to 10 participants may be used. They were chosen purposely and accordingly, for they would be coming from the different subject fields in the academe. We have entrepreneurship, general mathematics, general biology, English for academic and professional purposes, and multimedia and information literacy. All these teachers were teaching during the data gathering in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics or STEM strand and the academic track. More so, these teachers were observed twice during their actual classroom discussions to verify their classroom discussion flow. Voice recorder and cell phone were used to record all classroom discourses so that corpora would be made available for analysis and interpretation. For the results of the first question, what are the language moves in classroom discourse? The following were found out. Teachers solicit responses from students by checking students' day, encouraging to ask questions, asking questions, giving hints, and checking the students learn if the students learn. Moreover, teachers respond through giving commendations, answering questions and queries, and discussing answers. Also, teachers structure their language by directing or requesting someone to pray or do something, reviewing the past lesson, introducing the topic, interacting through question and answer, explaining the lesson, giving quiz or activity, and asking someone to continue doing something. That could be a task. Lastly, teachers react by shushing the students, giving announcements or bidding goodbye, greeting, connecting talks to today's lesson, giving commendations, warning or advising, correcting student statements and answers, and giving also information. For the question, how do language moves shape students' participation in classroom discourse, the following were observed and drawn. Students tend to ask more questions regarding the subject matter and practice critical thinking by making follow-up questions or looking to a situation from other lenses to understand it better, or to understand the lesson better. They are also into giving more their opinions and actively recite. They complete also their tasks on time, and they collaborate with their classmates. In this study, teachers still did most of the talking inside the classroom, yet the purpose of talking is just to make sure that students are guided regarding the lessons of the subject matter and to make sure that students really learn these lessons before going out from the 4 corners of the classroom. One thing to ensure this is to use the language properly with politeness, courtesy, and making sure that students will feel welcome and valued inside the classroom in all activities to be conducted. Once they feel that they are welcome, respected, and valued through the language use of the teacher, they would just voluntarily participate in any designed activity of the teacher. And that is all. Mahalo.